Ahead of the transition of power in the U.S., speculation is rife that a second Trump administration is likely focused on hiring loyalists. President-elect Trump and President Biden will meet on Wednesday. Here in Seoul, the government is thoroughly preparing for the new administration in Washington, for which President Yoon Suk-yeol held a meeting over the weekend to check response measures on the economy and security. The first round of talks began today involving lawmakers, the medical community, and the government to resolve prolonged conflict over medical reform. They pledged to yield tangible results by next month, while the opposition party and some key medical groups did not join the talks. It's November 11th, 8 p.m. in Seoul. This is Newscenter. Thank you for joining us. I'm Yoon Jung-min. With a second Trump presidency drawing near in the U.S., speculation is rife who will be joining or leaving key posts, amid watchers suggesting that the president-elect is likely focused on hiring loyalists. Choi Min-jung has the latest.
The U.S. is underway with its transition to the Trump administration. The big question is whether President-elect Donald Trump will follow through with his threat to fire the chair of the U.S. Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell. Trump has repeatedly threatened to fire Powell, and Powell himself responded last week, insisting he will not resign. Tesla and SpaceX CEO Elon Musk, one of Trump's closest aides, endorsed allowing presidents to intervene in Federal Reserve policy. Trump has been stressing that he should have the power to influence the setting of interest rates as president. Meanwhile, Trump announced the appointment of another high-ranking official to his team. On social media on Sunday, the president-elect tapped Tom Homan as his border czar. The former acting director of Immigration and Customs Enforcement will be in charge of the country's borders, including all maritime and aviation security, as well as the deportation of illegal immigrants. Homan served during Trump's first term for a year and a half. On Wednesday, Trump is expected to meet with President Joe Biden in the Oval Office. The customary meeting between the incumbent and incoming president marks the start of the transfer of power. Eyes are on which other handful of loyalists will make up Trump's new team and play key roles across the government ahead of his return to the White House in January. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
Against this backdrop, President Yoon and top office officials have gathered to address the possible impact of a second Trump administration on bilateral trade and regional security. Woo Soo-young reports.
Preparing for the return of Donald Trump to the White House next year, South Korea's top office will launch an economic council and swiftly engage with the incoming Trump administration to cooperate on pressing bilateral issues. On Sunday, President Yoon Suk-yeol convened his top policy aides to review South Korea's economic and security situation amid external changes.
미국 대선이 끝났고 2달 후면은 새 행정부가 출범합니다. 워싱턴에 새 행정부가 출범을 하고 또 새로운 정책 기조가 정해지면 세계 경제와 안보에 상당히 많은 변화가 있게 됩니다. 이에 따라서 우리 경제와 안보에도 직간접으로 많은 영향을 미치게 되는 만큼 여러 가지 치밀한 준비가 필요합니다.
To brace for the economic impact, Yoon first called for an immediate launch of a consultative body on finance, trade and industry, headed by the Deputy Prime Minister. During his campaign, President-elect Trump pledged to slap tariffs of more than 60% on Chinese goods and 10 to 20% on imports from countries other than China to encourage production in America. Based on its analysis of Trump's campaign pledges, Yoon's office says it is considering all possibilities. A senior official told reporters that if the US imposes general tariffs, it could weaken the competitiveness of US products. However, depending on the scope of the tariffs, there could also be opportunities to collaborate with Seoul.
U.S. officials and Congress are well aware that South Korean firms contribute significantly to the revival of American manufacturing and job creation through large-scale investment. We believe they will recognize it is important for our firms to operate smoothly in the U.S. market.
He said the government will also work with the private sector to identify US interests and corporate needs in industries like shipbuilding. In a phone call last week with President Yoon, President-elect Trump first raised the need for cooperation with South Korea in the shipbuilding sector. South Korea also intends to engage with incoming Trump officials to align Seoul and Washington's policies on diplomacy and security, according to Deputy National Security Advisor Kim Tae-ho.
Through the South Korea-US alliance, we can strengthen deterrence against North Korea while navigating global geopolitical and geo-economic competition together. By deepening defense and defense industry cooperation and creating synergies in advanced industries and technology, we aim to expand our leadership to promote peace and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific region.
Kim said Seoul will also continue to deepen the allies' trilateral cooperation with Japan to deter North Korea and jointly tackle regional security and economic challenges. Amid concerns over the president-elect's push for South Korea to pay more for American boots on the ground, an official told reporters South Korea will explain that their deals on defense cost-sharing have always served their mutual benefit. Seoul covered 90% of the costs of building Camp Humphreys, America's largest base overseas. On whether South Korea would seek its own nuclear deterrent to build leverage, the official said Seoul is focusing on alliance-based deterrence with Washington, and an independent nuclear weapon is a matter of consideration in only extreme scenarios. Going forward, Yoon's office plans to launch a security economic cooperation program that enhances the strengths and competitiveness of both countries in supply chains, advanced technology and future industries, so that South Korean and US citizens and firms can benefit from more jobs and opportunities. Usyang, Arirang News.
In the meantime, Bitcoin hit record highs on the back of Trump's decisive election victory. Our Ishiba tells us what the future of this market may look like.
Bitcoin, the world's largest cryptocurrency, soared to new highs following Donald Trump's U.S. presidential election victory. After surpassing $75,000 on the results of the U.S. presidential election last week, Bitcoin continued to soar over the weekend, reaching yet another all-time high. On Sunday morning, according to cryptocurrency exchange platform Coinbase, Bitcoin surpassed $80,000 for the first time before soaring to yet another record high by topping $81,000 in the afternoon. The price of Bitcoin, as well as the cryptocurrency market as a whole, has been on the rise as the president-elect promised to ease regulations on virtual currencies during his campaign, a shift from his previous stance.
He was initially negative about cryptocurrency due to his lack of personal experience with it, but after issuing NFTs and becoming more involved, he began to see its significant potential as an asset.
During his campaign trail, Trump pledged to make the United States the crypto capital of the planet, saying that he would appoint regulators more supportive of the digital asset industry. One of the first actions as president that he vowed to take was to fire the current chair of the Securities and Exchange Commission, Gary Gensler, who has been openly wary and skeptical about cryptocurrencies. And the bullish trend in the wake of Trump's win has been extended to smaller coins such as Dogecoin, which is considered to be a meme coin and a favorite of Trump supporter Elon Musk.
As it's already known, Elon Musk owns significant amounts of crypto, including Dogecoin, and whatever he says often impacts their prices, so the news of Trump and Musk working together is enough to send a positive signal to the crypto industry.
He added that while digital assets like Bitcoin tend to be volatile, the likelihood of the Trump administration embracing cryptocurrencies indicates that there will be an upward trend in prices for the time being. Ishiba, Arirang News.
A high-level delegation from the Czech Republic arrived in South Korea to finalize negotiations for the construction of 2 new nuclear reactors at the gov't nuclear power plant. Korea Hydro and Nuclear Power was selected as the preferred bidder for the multi-billion-dollar project. And during the 2-week trip starting Monday, the Czech delegation will visit nuclear power plants and manufacturing facilities in Korea. The visit comes following complaints filed by France's EDF and Westinghouse from the United States with Czech antitrust authorities. Despite these challenges, both parties stated that they remain committed to finalizing the contract by March 2025. In other news, the medical community, lawmakers, and government officials have launched their first joint platform to address the prolonged standoff over medical school admissions. The opposition party and some key medical groups, however, were absent. Kim Do-yeon explains.
A potential turning point in the ongoing standoff between the government and doctors. On Monday, the ruling People Power Party, some medical associations, and the government kicked off a consultative body at the National Assembly pledging to yield results by the end of the year.
Despite the conflict and deadlock, we believe we've finally found a breakthrough. For the first time since the medical crisis began, the government and the medical community have come together in front of the public to resolve the issue. It's a delayed but significant step forward.
But the group faces hurdles as it's missing key pieces. The opposition parties did not join as some key medical organizations opted out of the initiative. The key medical organizations, Korea Interns and Residents Association and the Korea Medical Association, won't join unless the government starts the medical reform plan from scratch, including canceling the medical school enrollment quota expansion, which has already been set for the upcoming application season. People Power Party Chair Han Do-hoon called on them to start the discussion first.
The Korean Academy of Medical Sciences and KAMC, which oversee the training and education of medical residents and students, are taking the lead in gathering and addressing the medical community's demands through open communication and the consultative body. With broader participation from the medical field, we believe more effective and swift agreements can be reached.
The medical associations that did join the group said it was only due to the urgency of the situation from the current halt in medical education and the strain on the medical infrastructure.
If the government and ruling party fail to show genuine commitment, the conflict will never be resolved. This time, we hope they approach the situation with a sense of urgency and a true willingness to find a solution.
Prime Minister Han Duck-soo said the medical reform isn't just about raising the medical school student quota. It's also about improving the working conditions for doctors in the country.
The government's medical reform is a comprehensive strategy aimed at transforming the foundation and paradigm of our medical system. It reflects the government's commitment to protecting the public and building a sustainable, high-quality healthcare system.
Meanwhile, the group is set to meet twice a week. The key issue at hand is the return of interns and residents across the nation. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Japan's parliament has re-elected Shigeru Ishiba as the country's prime minister. According to Kyodo News, Ishiba was formally re-elected on Monday in the first runoff vote in 3 decades to select a new prime minister. Ishiba, the head of the Liberal Democratic Party, defeated his rival Yoshihiko Noda, leader of the main opposition Constitutional Democratic Party, 221 to 160. The re-election comes after Ishiba's governing coalition lost the majority in the lower house last month. On Monday, a special parliamentary session was convened to pick a new leader in a vote required within a month of a general election. The 29th UN Climate Summit begins today in Azerbaijan with broad discussions amid uncertainty over the fate of climate action by the U.S. under a second Trump administration. Our foreign affairs correspondent Bae Eun-ji has this report.
This year, 2024, is on track to be the hottest on record. It could also be the first year to exceed the Paris Agreement threshold, which aims to keep global warming under 1.5 degrees Celsius.
15 of the past 16 months have broken temperature records. And today, the World Meteorological Organization and partners tell us that 2024 is on track to be the hottest year ever recorded, almost 2 months before it ends.
To address climate change, officials from almost 200 countries have gathered in Azerbaijan to take part in the United Nations Annual Climate Summit, the COP29. From South Korea, a delegation led by the Minister of Environment, Kim Won-suk, will take part. The climate talks come as U.S. President-elect Donald Trump, a so-called climate denier, is set to return to the White House. The New York Times said Trump is preparing to withdraw from the Paris Climate Agreement. He earlier pulled the United States out of the deal during his first term, before Biden rejoined the agreement.
The United States will withdraw from the Paris Climate Accord, so we're getting out. But we will start to negotiate, and we will see if we can make a deal that's fair. And if we can, that's great. And if we can't, that's fine.
This year's climate meeting is expected to be focused on how much financial support should be given annually to help developing countries cope with climate-related costs. During a COP summit in 2010, developed countries agreed to mobilize $100 billion per year by 2020. But countries failed to meet the goal on time, and in 2015, the goal was extended until 2025. However, with the possibility of the U.S. withdrawing from the Paris Agreement again, there are a lot of uncertainties and concerns remaining on this issue.
With this election result, we really get very concerned that all the talks are now going to be what will happen in the absence of the U.S. and the U.S. not meeting its finance goal or even reversing some of the mitigation policies that Biden administration brought. That is going to be at the heart of the conversation at COP29.
The COP29 is scheduled to take place until November 22nd, and all eyes are now on whether countries will be able to agree on a new global climate finance target for 2025 and onwards. Bae Eun-ji, Arirang News.
Today, November 11th, marks the International Memorial Day for UN Korean War veterans. An annual commemorative event took place at the UN cemetery in Korea's city of Busan, and our correspondent Kim Bo-kyo was at the site.
A moment of silence at the UN Memorial Cemetery in Korea. This to honor fallen veterans who fought in the Korean War under one United Nations flag. Around 1.98 million personnel from 22 countries were dispatched to fight for freedom. And the only UN cemetery in the world, located in Korea's port city of Busan, became home to more than 2,300 fallen veterans from 13 countries. Proposed in 2007 by a Canadian veteran, November 11th was designated as the International Memorial Day for UN Korean War veterans, and to have a moment of silence toward the cemetery in Busan. This year, marking the 18th edition of the commemorative event, brought together veterans and their families to remember not just the history, but what was left for the future.
They did not fight and many times die for a place in history. They fought for something greater than themselves, a vision that is now our reality, one of shared freedom and democratic values. We owe them everything.
Veterans who came back to Korea to celebrate the day shared their stories, and one told Arirang News how surprised he was to see how Korea has changed since then.
All that time I fought, and I was lucky. I got hurt several times, you know, but I came home. I came home. Beautiful city. When I left here, it wasn't like that.
Prior to the ceremony, a burial service was held for an unidentified UN veteran whose remains were discovered in Yeoncheon-gun County, Gyeonggi-do Province. Believed to be a European male aged between 17 and 25, this marked the first post-armistice burial of an unidentified UN soldier at the cemetery.
Laying to rest an unknown veteran with full honors reflects South Korea's promise to never forget and to honor the UN veterans who fought and sacrificed their lives anonymously for the Republic of Korea until the very end.
By commemorating the UN veterans who fought and fell to defend the Republic of Korea, their sacrifice and the legacy lives on from generation to generation. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News, Busan.
Time now to take a look at what's been happening in the world of sports. Joining us in the studio is our sports editor, Paul Need. Hello, Paul.
Hello there.
Let's start with football. Plenty of goals for some Korean stars based in Europe over the weekend.
Yes, indeed, including Lee Gang-in, who scored 2 for Paris Saint-Germain. On Sunday, in PSG's 4-2 away win over Angers, Lee Gang-in scored a quick-fire brace with goals on 17 and 20 minutes. Operating from the right-hand side of a front three, Lee fired in from around 12 yards out to make it 1-0 before burying a first-time finish from just over 6 yards out to make it 2-0. PSG sit top of the league, 6 points clear of Monaco. As for he now has 6 goals in 11 league matches this season. Over in the Netherlands, Hwang In-bom scored a diving header 3 minutes into Feyenoord's 4-1 win over Almere on Sunday, making it 1-0. It was his second goal since moving to the club this summer. And in Germany, Lee Jae-sung scored the opening goal in Mainz's 3-1 win at home over Borussia Dortmund. It was his second of the season. All 3 are in the South Korea squad for the forthcoming World Cup qualifiers with a Kuwait and a Palestine.
And staying with football, it was a dramatic weekend in K-League.
It was, and it ended with the relegation of Incheon United from K-League 1. Incheon on Sunday lost 2-1 at home to Daejeon Hana Citizen. This, coupled with Jeonbuk's 3-1 win over Daegu, meant that Incheon will play next season in the second tier, suffering relegation for the first time in the club's 21-year history. But the win for Daejeon, thanks to goals from Ishida Masatoshi and Anton Krivotsiuk, means safety has been secured. But 9-time K-League 1 champions Jeonbuk Hyundai Motors will have to go through the indignity of the relegation playoffs, so too Daegu FC. The final weekend's matches in a fortnight's time will determine which K-League 2 teams they will face. Jeonbuk play Gwangju away, Daegu are at home to Incheon.
All right, and moving on to golf now. A second LPGA win for Kim Ah-rim.
Yes, Kim won the Lotte Championship in Hawaii on Saturday. It is her first LPGA win since the 2020 US Open. Kim shot a final round 4 under par 68 and finished at 18 under 270 overall, 2 strokes ahead of Russia's Natalia Guseva. She took home $450,000 in prize money and became the 3rd South Korean to win on the tour this year, joining Amy Yang and Yoo Hae-ran. The win also means she is expected to move into the top 25 in the CME Globe standings, which would secure a spot in the season finale, the CME Group Tour Championship, which begins on November 21st.
And finally to baseball, just 2 days to go until South Korea start their Premier 12 journey.
Yes, that's right. Korea's first game is on Wednesday against Taiwan. That one gets underway at 7:30 p.m. local time, or 8:30 p.m. here in Korea. Manager of the team, Yoo Jung-il, has taken a young squad with him. Only 4 of the 28-man roster are over 30 and 18 players are aged 25 or younger. 21-year-old Kim Do-young, who won the Korean series with the Kia Tigers this year, is perhaps the biggest name among the young members of this team. Doosan Bears closer Kim Tae-yeon is the youngest at 19. This is the third edition of the Premier 12. Korea won the first in 2015, but then lost to Japan in the final in 2019.
All right, Paul, thanks for the wrap-up.
Thank you.
In Seoul, warm sunshine with clear skies without a single cloud today. The temperature rose to 21 degrees Celsius, so it was mild. For the rest of the week, the weather will continue to be milder than usual, but with large daily temperature differences. From tonight, the atmosphere will stagnate and smoke will gradually flow in. The Seoul metropolitan area, the Chungcheongdo provinces, and Jeollabuk-do province will have bad levels of ultrafine dust concentration throughout the day tomorrow. Tomorrow, Seoul will start off at 11 degrees, Gwangju and Daegu 10 degrees. Daily highs will move up to 18 in Seoul and Chuncheon, Daejeon and Gwangju 19 degrees. On Thursday, the day of the National College entrance exam, there will be no cold wave like there was last year, but it is expected to rain starting in the northwestern parts of the country in the afternoon. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world. And that is Newscenter for tonight. Thank you for watching. A panel session up next.
How to survive in Korea. Weddings. Step 0. Attire. As a guest, dress formal to business casual. Avoid wearing all white, shorts or going topless. Step 1. Arrival time. Arrive 30 minutes prior to the wedding ceremony. Too many cars, too many halls, too many people. There are many twists and turns. Take pictures and shake hands. And write your name vertically, not horizontally, in the guest book. Step 2. Or, shibor. 50,000 won, 100,000 won, 150,000 won. Cash gifts are given in these units. Decide on the amount based on your relationship. Write your name vertically on the envelope. Step 3. Wedding etiquette. Fill up the front row. Guests have 3 duties to fulfill: clapping, cheering, and taking pictures. Step 4. Dining. Take off your jacket. This will be your seat from now on. Start with the not your everyday delicacies. Galbijjim. Yes. Bosa. Yes. Chili shrimps. Definitely yes. Kimbap. Yeah. Only if you can't live without it. No need to pile up food. You have more than one opportunity. Did you survive the wedding? Wait. Did someone catch your eye? What are you waiting for? You're looking fine today.
And the president also remains committed to boosting Korea's ties with its global partners on the sidelines of this latest.
To discuss the current security environment.
The United Nations most powerful body on global security, expressing hope stock markets around the world have taken a hit. Speculation that the US Federal Reserve
아리랑. 요즘 한국에선 어떻게 노는지 알려줄까?
한국에선 아이돌이 되어볼 수도 인생 번호를 찾을 수도 있지.
제일 핫한 포토 스팟은 여기.
한국은 분명 너에게 새로운 영감을 줄 거야.
이런 한국, 와보지 않고는 모를걸? 진짜 한국에선 어떻게 먹는지 알려줄까?
K-바비큐? 신김치랑 먹어야지.
치킨? 치맥 페스티벌은 처음이지?
김치? 종류만큼 먹는 법도 가지각색.
김밥? 시장에선, 산에선, 바다에선 이렇게.
국밥?
취향 따라, 입맛 따라. 이런 한국, 와보지 않고는 모를걸?
Hello and welcome to Within the Frame, where we bring today's most pressing global issues into focus. I'm Kim Mo-gyun. Donald Trump claimed victory in the 2024 presidential election, defying predictions of a tight race. As media outlets across the globe continue to analyze the result, attention is shifting to the potential long-term implications for the United States. Trump's win is widely attributed to his focus on key issues such as the economy, immigration, and cultural division. Many observers argue that economic concerns played a crucial role, with voters, particularly those reliant on wages, feeling disconnected from claims of economic prosperity. Additionally, immigration emerged as a far more significant issue for voters, with its importance nearly 5 times greater than it was 4 years ago. For a deeper look into what Trump's second term could mean, we are joined by our go-to VOA correspondent, Jessica Stone from Washington. Welcome to the program, Jessica.
Good to be with you.
And also joining us is Song Se-ryun, professor of law at Kyunghee University. Great to have you, Professor Song.
Good to join you.
So first, let's start with Jessica. How is the public reacting to Trump's victory? And also, what are local experts attributing Trump's landslide win to, Jessica?
Well, Republicans are certainly energized and encouraged. They are celebrating what they think is an end to government overreach and looking forward to a more prosperous economy. You know, the stock market has really reacted quite obviously by skyrocketing in the couple of days we've had since the election. And since Trump literally won across all states, swing states, I should say, and the popular vote. Now, on the other hand, those who supported Harris, they're devastated. Many of the women I've spoken to are particularly devastated that this is the second time a female presidential candidate has lost to this same individual who is, of course, found liable of sexual assault. And in terms of the question that you asked about why and how, well, that is something that, observers will probably be unpacking for many more days to come. But what we do know from the exit polls, as you referred to earlier, is this. The economy was a huge issue in this election. 2/3 of the people who voted rated the economy as poor. And Biden had historically low approval rating, and Harris didn't really separate herself adequately from the last 4 years. You remember that critical moment on the ABC News show, The View, which is a talk show, where she was asked if she would do anything differently from the past 4 years. And she said she couldn't think of anything. That continues to be pointed to by analysts and by people I talk to, just, regular voters, as a seminal moment for her campaign, where she refused to distinguish herself from the last 4 years. And clearly the electorate was very disappointed with the last 4 years economically. We also know that Trump won more non-college educated men and women. He won suburban. He won a lot more suburban women than we thought initially he would. Trump also won the highest number of Latinos, particularly men, 47%, which is the largest number of any Republican in the modern age to win in a presidential election. Harris won fewer women than Biden did, so she lost ground. And Harris also lost Muslim Americans who went to Trump or who went to a third-party candidate, largely over the Biden-Harris position on Gaza. I want to read you a quote from Time magazine, which kind of sums it up. To the MAGA faithful, Trump's victory is a thrilling vision coming into view. For the less fervent supporters who helped put him over the top, his rhetoric is largely bluster in service of reforming a government out of touch with America's economic and social needs. To the rest of the country and much of the world, a second Trump term looks like a blow to democracy in the U.S. and beyond.
Right, so he was able to emphasize what the public actually needed. What about you, Professor Song? How did you see the election? What do you think brought such results?
Well, whether you like Trump or not, it was a very impressive comeback. I think the major analysis has got it right. The perception that Trump has more strength in addressing economic concerns, partly because he became a president the first term in a economic upswing. So I think it helped a lot. And the impressive performance in his swing state, getting the Pennsylvania, Georgia, Wisconsin, and North Carolina all went to Trump. I think that Kamala Harris, valiant as she has fought, but at the end, the perception was that she became sort of like a one-issue candidate with a lot of emphasis on the abortion rights. But I think that this is a moment where the American people has put economic issues more importantly than anything else. I think there are a lot of people now worry about the state of the global governance, global governance matters because Trump was pretty detrimental in their assessment to multilateralism. So we'll see what happens.
Right. So staying with the economy, according to an exit poll results released by CNN, more than half of the respondents indicated dissatisfaction with the current administration due to economic issues. Now, unlike economic indicators, could this mean that economic sentiments felt by Americans were more difficult, Jessica?
I think what it means is it's exposing the class divide in the United States. We certainly saw a division within the voting population, many more elites going for the Democratic Party ticket, many more non-elites and lower and working class voters going for the Trump ticket. And let's just look at some of those numbers. We saw more non-college voters come out, non-college educated voters, come out in large numbers for Trump, not just men, but women as well. And remember, they are much more economically vulnerable rather. They cannot earn as much as many of the college-educated voters in some cases. And again, a historic number of Latino men who are also, in some cases, economically vulnerable, particularly in those border areas that are experiencing an influx of asylum seekers, which are also low-wage workers. Economic Innovation Group also tracked economic health and vote. And I found this very interesting. They looked at counties and how they voted and what their demographic and economic status was and how they voted. Trump gained more than 2 points in distressed and at-risk parts of the United States, which of course fits with his pitch, the forgotten man and forgotten woman. But he also gained less than 2 points on his previous performance in counties that were rated as comfortable or prosperous. Analysts say these voters were probably drawn to him because of his positions on illegal immigration and curbing it and lowering taxes. So I think, we can't just say that the lower economic voters went for him. There were reasons for suburban and middle and upper middle class voters to go for him as well. Crime, that curbing illegal immigration and wanting more tax breaks.
Right. Now, alongside these economic causes, there's also growing interest in voting patterns based on gender and race. Professor Song, what are the reasons behind the shifts in voting behavior among Black and Latino male voters who traditionally support the Democratic Party?
Even there, I think the economic concerns played a lot of role there. as the James Carville said in 1992, it's the economy is stupid. I think it worked in the same way. But looking into it, there's also kind of internal changes in the ethnic groups. Decades ago, there was a distinctive, the Latin voters, they spoke mostly Spanish and identified with more Latin issues. But now much of them speak English and they are more mainstream. Even the black voters, younger voters, never experienced the civil rights movement. Many of them don't go to church, which traditionally has been the kind of an incubator for the political activism. So there are a lot of changes even within the ethnic groups and the voting blocks. And maybe you could say they're fragmented, but in this age of identity politics, we have more voices and diverse voices, and the role of the political parties, their homework is how to kind of contain, how to cater to the changes in the voting patterns.
Right. And another big factor, like our Professor Song mentioned a while ago, is abortion rights. Jessica, why did the issue of abortion rights, which was expected to galvanize female voters through Kamala Harris, fail to have a significant impact?
I think this is what Professor Song talked about. It's an age of identity politics, but these identities don't all have monolithic voting patterns. All women do not consider abortion to be their top issue. Certainly many do, but not all do. And what we saw in the exit polls was that 63% of white non-college educated women came out for Trump. That's almost as many as the men in that same demographic came out. The other major factor that I think is very significant to point out is that, we have had this pattern of, since the Bush years of ballot initiatives and referenda and amendments of different issues that are down ballot that can draw more people to the polls. There were 9 or 10 states who put abortion on the ballot separate from the presidential ticket, separate from other congressional and Senate races. And what that allowed voters to do was to split the ticket, and they did. We saw women overwhelmingly come out, and many of these abortion rights restoration efforts be restored in lower ballot initiatives. But they still voted Trump. They still voted Trump. In some cases, I found one statistic where AP found that 3 out of 10 voters in Arizona and Missouri and Nevada supported abortion rights and Trump. So when you give voters the option, we saw in this election that they wanted what they thought Trump would give them, and they wanted to restore abortion rights in their states.
Right, so voters have different kinds of personal interests, and it's very difficult to put that into one. Now, Professor Song, how might the changing of demographics of the electorate influence future political strategies for both major parties?
In the same vein, I think the major theme might not change much. The Democratic Party catering more to minority groups, but because the voices are diverse, they have to look at the kind of a more detailed level of policies to cater to those different voices. And I think the big opportunity for them is drawing more younger voters who might be more conscious of social justice than the older generations, and their messages has to be catered to that. I think the Republicans, same thing. They'll focus more on the economic agenda and family values. But for younger voters, their spin would be a little bit more different. For example, focusing more on the high-tech, innovation, national security, and all those. So I think that the politics, party politics, has to evolve so that they'll address all kinds of different issues. So I think that having diverse and more inclusive members in the Congress and the lawmakers, probably that'll help. Maybe more the think tanks maybe help, but I think most important is more participation in the political process from the grassroots level.
Right. Now, speaking of the Congress, with the Republican Party securing a majority in both the House and Senate elections alongside the presidential election, Jessica, how might the this results influence the pace of Trump's policies during his second term?
Well, certainly the Senate being in the hands of the Republican Party will speed up the confirmation process. And Trump has already alluded to that on his social media posts. He really wants to get the transition moving quickly, get his post confirmed quickly. We're already getting, some announcements. We got the Chief of Staff announcement this week. We may get Secretary of State or Defense in the coming days. But remember, too, that we got a preview of Trump's first term. He had the same mandate. He had a Republican Congress. I think the difference is that there were more Trump skeptics in Congress. So, for example, he could not overturn the Affordable Care Act as he has promised to do again because there were Republicans that wouldn't go along with that. It is possible that this time that may change. There are fewer Trump skeptics in Congress. And I think where that's going to really come up is on policies with respect to overseas conflicts. For example, the Ukraine war. We know that is something that more Republicans now have taken the sort of populist stance that Trump has supported to get out of these never-ending wars abroad. So that could be an area. And we could also see them go along with policies much more quickly on the trade war against Chinese goods because there are fewer constituencies that are as critical as maybe 8 years ago they were.
Right. Now, so Trump is set to be inaugurated on January 20th. Jessica, we are aware that Trump and President Biden are set to meet sometime this week. What will the inauguration process look like moving forward?
Yeah, they're going to meet on Wednesday, which is tomorrow here in the U.S. And this inauguration process is on its way. The transition is really critical, and part of the transition mechanism that happens in the United States is that there is a budget that is opened up to the incoming party and administration if certain paperwork has been signed. And there are offices provided and even secure emails provided to the incoming team. What hasn't taken place yet, to my knowledge, is that the Trump administration has refused to sign those papers yet to open the door to that. Some of that may well be motivated by their desire to really separate themselves from the establishment. We've seen them campaign again, and they did it again on draining the swamp. And every indication is that they really want to change the way government operates in Washington. And that may start with doing this differently, but they are leaving on the table some secure methods, some office space, and certainly money to do this transition. So we'll have to see if out of this meeting with Biden on Wednesday comes a decision to change course and go ahead and make that transition possible.
Right. So we are aware that Trump is eager to push through with the transition. But Jessica, why is Trump trying to carry out the inauguration independently, like without the help of the current Biden administration?
Essentially, at this point, it looks as though it's in keeping with his declaration that he wants to drain the swamp. He really does want to change the way government operates. And that is certainly a talking point that we've heard from Republican candidates for many, many years in the past. I think what's different about Donald Trump is that he has already brought in people that are not part of the political machine. I mean, Elon Musk, for example, some of the other names that are in the mix are not well known in Washington. They come from the financial establishment. They're hedge fund managers. They can manage large projects and financial projects, but they're not creatures of Washington. That's been very important to the Trump campaign, and they don't want to sign on for any paperwork or any transition processes that beholden them to the establishment and keeping people here. I suspect we're going to see a strong effort to purge any political appointments that can be replaced and any other lower level appointments. There's certainly quite a lot of fear in Washington among those who are, dependent on the government for their livelihood about that and how that will affect them personally.
Right. Thank you for the clarification. Now, meanwhile, Andy Kim, a Democrat, has been elected as the first Asian American and Korean American federal senator. Professor Song, what significance does this hold in the history of American politics?
Well, it's a testament to the political prowess that Korean Americans are achieving. It's good for better representation, diverse perspectives, political inclusivity. But on a personal note, I was around in California when the first Korean-American Congressman, Mr. Kim Chang-jun, was elected in 1992. And that's the year when we had a LA riot where a lot of Korean Americans got hurt. And we were kind of envious of other communities who had the better political representation. Well, 30 years later, we have a senator, the Korean American, in the U.S. So I think that it is a very good news. Certainly, it'll improve the relationship between the Korea and the United States. And him being a security expert, probably it'll also contribute to the kind of security situation in the region. So I expect to see his political activities, not just as a Korean Americans, but as a better, well-informed American to contribute to the better policies.
Right. And also a number of Korean American representatives have also been elected to Congress. What expectations do you have for Korean American politicians who have entered U.S. politics?
Yeah, also mainstream. It's also a success story for the Korean American immigration history, which earnestly started in 1970s. Well, we go back way back. If you look at the first generation immigrants to Hawaii, but to United States, early 70s. That's when in mass immigration started happen. Again, 30 years later, mainstream, the politicians who will represent many different issues. I expect that a lot of Asian values, Korean values, maybe on an education and economic opportunities will be stressed. And there will be certainly a good role model for the minority Asian students to take steps to become more, in the mainstream player.
Right, so we will look forward to that. Professors Hong and Jessica, I'm afraid we'll have to wrap up our discussion here. Thank you so much for your insights and your time tonight.
Pleasure to be with you.
And that will be the end of Within the Frame. Thank you so much for joining us. Be sure to tune in again tomorrow at the same time. Until then, goodbye.
요즘 한국에선 어떻게 노는지 알려줄까?
한국에선 아이돌이 되어볼 수도 인생 번호를 찾을 수도 있지. 제일 핫한 포토 스팟은 여기. 한국은 분명 너에게 새로운 영감을 줄 거야.